In the shadows of Vietnam's dense jungles lurked a predator whose name sent chills through hardened Marines. They called her Apache, the most terrifying woman of the Vietnam War. This is the hunt that became legend. The morning mist clung to Hill 55 like a shroud, obscuring the dense jungle that surrounded the Marine encampment. Gunnery Sergeant Carlos Hathcock wiped condensation from his rifle scope, his weathered face betraying no emotion as he scanned the tree line. 8 miles from Da Nang, this elevated position should have offered security, but lately, the Marines stationed here slept with one eye open. They had good reason. Someone was hunting them. "Another one last night," Captain Edward Jim Land said quietly, handing Hathcock a cup of bitter coffee. "Private Mendez found him at the perimeter with a single shot through the forehead. Clean kill, 600 yards minimum." Hathcock nodded silently. This wasn't ordinary Viet Cong work. The precision, the patience, it carried a signature he'd come to recognize. For weeks now, Marines had whispered about one of the most terrifying women of the Vietnam War. A sniper of mixed Vietnamese and French ancestry who'd earned the nickname Apache, not just for her marksmanship, but for what she did to those unfortunate enough to be taken alive. The men of the 5th Regiment, 1st Marine Division, had developed a particular dread of the area around Duc Pho. Reports had filtered in from South Vietnamese troops of a female Viet Cong operative who took special pleasure in torture. The stories seemed too horrific to be true, until bodies began appearing, mutilated in ways that confirmed the worst rumors. "Commands made her a priority target," Land continued, his voice low enough that nearby Marines couldn't hear. "They're calling her Apache because of—" He trailed off, gesturing vaguely toward his eyes. Hathcock understood the reference. Intelligence had confirmed the gruesome trophies she collected. Eyelids. The thought made his jaw tighten. "She's using a Mosin Nagant with a scope," Land added. "Russian-made, 7.62 millimeters. Hathcock raised his binoculars again, methodically sweeping the distant ridgelines. "Good rifle, not as good as mine." A young Marine approached them hesitantly, his face pale beneath a layer of jungle grime. "Gunny, Captain, Lieutenant wants you at command. Scout just came in with information about—" He lowered his voice. "About her." As they walked toward the command post, Hathcock noticed how the younger Marines watched him, with a mixture of hope and desperation. They needed to believe that someone could end the reign of terror that Apache had brought to Hill 55. The most terrifying woman of the Vietnam War had become more than just an enemy combatant. She had become a psychological weapon that was slowly breaking the unit's morale. Inside the command post, Lieutenant Colonel Davidson hunched over a map spread across a makeshift table. His fingers traced the contours of the terrain surrounding Hill 55, pausing at various marked locations. When Hathcock and Land entered, he straightened, revealing bloodshot eyes that spoke of too many sleepless nights. "Gentlemen," Davidson nodded, "our scout brought in something you need to see." A South Vietnamese ranger stood in the corner, his uniform caked with mud. He stepped forward at Davidson's gesture, placing several photographs on the table. "These were taken near a village 3 clicks east," Davidson explained. "Reconnaissance patrol managed to capture these before they were spotted." The grainy black and white images showed a small group of Viet Cong moving through dense vegetation. In one photo, partially obscured by foliage, stood a slight figure carrying a rifle with a distinctive scope. A woman whose features displayed her mixed Vietnamese and French heritage. Even in the poor quality photograph, there was something unnervingly calm about her expression. "That's her," Land confirmed. "Apache." Hathcock studied the image carefully. "She's small, couldn't be more than 100 pounds. Easy to underestimate. That's what makes her one of the most terrifying women operating in this war," Davidson said grimly. "She doesn't look like a threat until it's too late." The scout spoke up, his English halting but clear enough. "She have camp, moving every 2-3 days, very careful, very smart." He tapped another photograph showing a rudimentary shelter. "She not like other VC. Others fear her too." Land raised an eyebrow. "Her own people are afraid of her?" The scout nodded vigorously. "She enjoy the pain, not for information only. For," he struggled to find the word, "pleasure." A heavy silence fell over the room. Hathcock had encountered many enemies during his tours in Vietnam, but there was something particularly disturbing about Apache's methodology. Most combatants killed out of necessity, duty, or survival. The intelligence on Apache suggested something far more sinister, a deliberate cultivation of terror. "We've assembled a dossier," Davidson continued, sliding a folder toward them. "Everything we know about her. Born in Hanoi, father was a French colonial administrator, mother Vietnamese. Joined the Viet Cong early, distinguished herself as both a marksman and an interrogator. She's 31 years old and responsible for at least 27 confirmed kills in this sector alone." Hathcock opened the folder, scanning the reports inside. Witness testimonies from captured Viet Cong painted a picture of a woman who had earned her fearsome reputation, even among her comrades. "Why us specifically?" Hathcock asked. "Intelligence suggests she lost family during an operation near Da Nang last year. Civilian casualties in a village suspected of harboring VC. Since then, she's focused almost exclusively on American forces, particularly the 5th Regiment." Land flipped through several more photographs, grisly images of recovered bodies that bore Apache's signature mutilations. "She's escalating," he observed, getting bolder. "That's why you two are here," Davidson said. "This isn't just about eliminating an enemy sniper anymore. It's about stopping the most terrifying woman in this theater before she breaks this unit's fighting spirit." Hathcock closed the folder, his expression unreadable. "We'll need to establish observation posts. Cover the likely approach routes, identify patterns." "Already mapped the best positions," Land said, pointing to several locations on the map. "High ground here and here gives us coverage of the most likely transit corridors based on previous sightings." The scout stepped forward again, pointing to a valley between two ridgelines. "She liked this place. Good water. Good hiding. Many caves." Davidson nodded. "You'll have whatever resources you need. This has become a priority mission, straight from Da Nang Command." As they left the command post, the weight of their assignment settled on Hathcock's shoulders. The hunt for Apache wasn't just a tactical operation, it had become a psychological necessity. Around them, the Marines of Hill 55 went about their duties with a tension that was palpable. Young men jumped at shadows, their nerves frayed by weeks of precision kills and recovered bodies bearing unimaginable torture. "They need a win, Carlos," Land said quietly as they collected their gear. "These boys need to believe they're not helpless." Hathcock checked his Winchester Model 70, the familiar weight of the rifle reassuring in his hands. "Then let's give them one." For the next 3 days, they established a routine. Before dawn, they would move to one of their observation posts, sometimes remaining motionless for 18 hours at a stretch, watching, waiting. Hathcock's legendary patience served him well. He could remain perfectly still for longer than most men could stay awake. On the 4th day, they spotted movement, a small patrol moving along a stream bed, taking care to stay under the jungle canopy. Through his scope, Hathcock counted 5 figures, but none matched Apache's description. "Spotters," Land whispered. "She sends them ahead to secure the route." Hathcock nodded. "She'll be following. Question is when." The answer came that night, in a way neither man could have anticipated. They heard screams just after midnight. Hathcock bolted upright in his cot, instantly alert. The agonized cries echoed across the valley, clearly audible from the Marine encampment. Land was already pulling on his boots. "She's sending a message," he said, his voice tight with anger. Throughout the night, the screams continued, punctuated by periods of silence that somehow felt even more horrifying. The Marines on watch stood rigid, their faces pale in the moonlight. Everyone knew what was happening. Apache had captured one of their own, and was demonstrating why she had earned her reputation as the most terrifying woman many would encounter in the Vietnam War. "Who's missing?" Hathcock asked the lieutenant on duty, his voice low and controlled despite the rage building inside him. The lieutenant checked the roster with shaking hands. "Private Johnson. He was on perimeter patrol with Ramirez. Ramirez came back with a graze wound, said they got ambushed. Thought Johnson was right behind him." Land and Hathcock exchanged glances. They both knew what this meant. Apache had deliberately left Ramirez alive, ensuring he would return to base with news of Johnson's capture. The psychological warfare was as calculated as her marksmanship. "We can't go out there blind," Land cautioned as several Marines began gearing up. That's exactly what she wants. An emotional response. Marines rushing out unprepared. "So we just listen to him die?" A young corporal challenged, his face flushed with anger and fear. Hathcock placed a firm hand on the corporal's shoulder. "We listen, we learn, and we make sure she pays for it. But we do it smart." Dawn broke with eerie silence. Hathcock and Land were preparing to lead a patrol when a sentry's shout drew them to the eastern perimeter. A figure had emerged from the jungle, staggering toward the base. Even from a distance, Hathcock could see the blood. "Cover me," he said, and before Land could object, he was running toward the wounded Marine. The young private collapsed just yards from Hathcock. What had been done to him defied comprehension. The Marine's eyes, mercifully, were closed in death, though the lids remained intact. A final cruelty, leaving him aware until the very end. Hathcock knelt beside the body, something cold and implacable settling in his chest. This wasn't war. This was sadism elevated to an art form. The private couldn't have been more than 19. "We find her today," he said when Land reached him. It wasn't a suggestion. Back at the command post, Davidson studied the map with renewed intensity. "She's playing with us," he said, his voice hoarse. "Letting us know she can get this close to our perimeter." "She wants us to come after her," Land agreed. "Probably has ambush positions already set up, expecting a company-sized response." Hathcock traced a finger along the map. "So we don't give her what she expects. Just the two of us, moving light and fast." Davidson looked up sharply. "2 men against her entire squad?" "2 hunters," Hathcock corrected, "against prey that doesn't know it's being hunted." Land nodded in agreement. "Carlos is right. A full patrol would alert her. We move silently. We move now, while she thinks we're still organizing a response." "You have 12 hours, Davidson said after a moment's consideration. "If you're not back by then, I'm sending in everyone we've got, ambush or no ambush." They departed within the hour, carrying only essential gear: rifles, ammunition, water, and rations. No radios that might give away their position, no extra weight that would slow them down. Hathcock led the way, following the blood trail that Johnson had left as Apache's group had dragged him back to their position. The trail led them through dense jungle, occasionally disappearing where the ground hardened or streams crossed their path. But Hathcock read the forest like a book: broken twigs, displaced stones, the subtle signs that most would miss. By midday, they had covered nearly 4 kilometers, moving in complete silence. "They're getting sloppy," Land whispered, as they paused to check their bearings. He pointed to cigarette butts discarded near a resting place. "Overconfident," Hathcock nodded. "They think they've broken our will to pursue. Made us afraid." As afternoon shadows lengthened, the trail led upward, toward a ridgeline that offered commanding views of the surrounding valley. A perfect sniper's position. "Movement," Land breathed, freezing in place. Through his binoculars, Hathcock spotted them. 5 figures moving along the ridge approximately 700 yards away. 5 women, one of whom had a distinctive profile that's unmistakable even at a distance. The group paused near a rocky outcropping, and the woman gestured, apparently giving instructions to her companions. "That's her," Hathcock whispered, lowering his binoculars and raising his rifle. Land pulled out a small notebook, quickly calculating distance, wind, and elevation. 700 yards, wind from the west, about 5 miles per hour. Uphill shot. Hathcock made minute adjustments to his scope, compensating for the factors Land had identified. His breathing slowed, his focus narrowing until nothing existed except the crosshairs and the small figure they centered on. "Wait," Land cautioned, placing a hand on Hathcock's shoulder. "She's moving." The group had indeed begun to shift position, with Apache stepping away from her companions, moving toward a cluster of bushes. She slung her rifle over her shoulder, squatting slightly. "She's taking a piss," Land observed. "Perfect. She's separated from the group." This was the moment. Apache, the most terrifying woman of the Vietnam War, momentarily vulnerable and isolated from her protection. Hathcock drew a slow breath, then gradually exhaled, squeezing the trigger at the precise moment between heartbeats. The Winchester's report shattered the jungle's quiet. Through his scope, Hathcock watched Apache stumble backward, clutching her chest. Her companions scattered instantly, diving for cover. "Hit," Hathcock confirmed, chambering another round without taking his eye from the scope. The second shot caught Apache as she attempted to crawl toward cover. Her body jerked once, then lay still, face upturned toward the darkening sky. Land was already on the radio, calling in artillery coordinates on the remaining VC fighters. Within minutes, the ridgeline erupted in a series of explosions as shells rained down, eliminating any chance of retaliation or escape. When the barrage lifted, an eerie silence descended on the jungle. Hathcock and Land approached the position cautiously, rifles ready. Bodies lay scattered among the shattered trees and cratered earth, the aftermath of the artillery strike. But Hathcock's attention was fixed solely on the small figure lying apart from the others. Apache lay as she had fallen, her eyes open but unseeing. In death, she appeared almost ordinary, a woman of 31 whose delicate features betrayed nothing of her notorious reputation. The Mosin Nagant lay beside her, its wooden stock polished by years of use. "It's done," Hathcock said simply. As Hathcock and Land returned to base with confirmation of Apache's death, the Marines of Hill 55 felt a collective weight lift from their shoulders. The most terrifying woman of the Vietnam War had finally been silenced, though the psychological scars she inflicted would linger far longer than the physical ones. Did you know about this woman? Tell us in the comments below. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.